The bad news is time flies. The good news, you're the pilot.
Welcome, Blaine. I'm so excited you took the time to be on my podcast. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic, even better now that I'm on the podcast with you. And I want to thank you for doing the podcast. These things take work, they take time, and you put this stuff together and then you put it online. So you have kind of what I call the results ripple, that you're touching lives not even yet born. So it's a great thing to be a part of. And I hope I can share some stuff today that's going to help some listener out there.
Oh, I'm sure you can. But first, tell us where in the world are you? Because I have an international audience. And then also want to know one thing in your life that people are surprised to hear about you.
Okay, so I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. So we have great weather most of the year. Some months it's a little hot, but I'm in Phoenix and been here for close to getting close to 30 years now. So I do enjoy the heat. And there's a couple of, when people say something unique about yourself. I've got a couple different ones, but the one that is most memorable is that I legally married my wife on her 7th birthday. Now, do you know how that's possible?
Yeah, she's probably born February 29th or something.
Hey, we got a smart podcast host here. So she was 28 years old. So it's perfectly legal. I'm not one of those people, but she was 28, years old. And we had a great time, had a little birthday cake. And now we have a birthday and a wedding anniversary only every 4 years. So I got to do something big. Got to do something big on those years.
Saves you some money, yeah?
There you go. There you go. Now we do celebrate every year anyway, but on those leap day, years with leap day is kind of special.
Yeah, I imagine. I was almost born on February 29th, but then I was late. I waited till March 3rd. I said, no, not doing that yet. February 29th thing. So you're America's only chief results officer, and I'm really very excited to talk with you, but I had a big challenge. So when I was preparing for this interview, I'm like, I want to talk about this. Oh yeah, I want to talk about this too. Oh, I want to talk about this too. So I'm almost thinking like we need to have a series going on.
Hey, if I'm adding value, I'm open to this.
But so let's start here. So one thing that you're saying is that life is better a day ahead. So let's talk about that. How does a life a day ahead look like, or how do we do this?
Yeah, so I have grown to love being a day ahead. And I think the world needs more people who are a day ahead. Now, I work primarily with business owners, and typically they're like a day behind or maybe a couple of days behind, actually. But moving from, a day behind to maybe being just a little behind, to being caught up, to being ahead, and then to being a day ahead makes a big difference. And what a day ahead is, it's where you wake up and there are no today to-dos. So there's nothing to do on the to-do list for that day. Now, you might have appointments like doing this podcast, things like that have to happen, but everything else has been done and you're literally a day ahead. And what I found out as I kind of move myself towards it, and I'm like ahead to a day ahead. I oscillate in between the two there. But when I'm a day ahead, my life is just a lot better. Like I'm a better person. I'm a better spouse. I'm a better parent. I'm a better friend. And I'm a better business owner because I'm able to have the space to be able to respond to things, to handle the urgent, to jump into a great opportunity if it comes along. But because I'm not under the pressure of the daily kind of urgent to-dos, I can perform a lot better. And I think for me, that's worked. And a lot of it can be a little bit of a mind game with yourself, but there are ways and systems to kind of move yourself more towards, first kind of catching up, but then being ahead. And a lot of business owners are in overwhelm and they're like, I can't even imagine being a day ahead. So it can take a little time to move through that. But you can, and there's some principles, we could talk about some habits that you can set up and some different things you can do to begin to experience that. And the most powerful word of the day ahead entrepreneur is the word no. So you do have to start to say no for you to grow, and for you to create that space for the most important things in your life. You have to start to say no to more stuff. And when I started saying no to more things than I say yes to, the tide turned, and it was pretty nice.
Yeah, I would say that's the ultimate of from chaos to peace, no, when you are a day ahead, because you're literally at peace and you can just kind of wake up and think, okay, let's see what the day brings, or what can I do to be a day ahead tomorrow as well, instead of scrambling and trying to get ahead or to catch up, like you said. So were you
I found that I had more energy. I had more energy when I was working on stuff for tomorrow than I was like feeling the pressure of under the gun to get it done. Now, urgency and deadlines do help sometimes, but I felt I had a better brain chemistry when I'm kind of working on things for the next day.
Yeah, totally. And I think science tells us that too. It's the similar, like when you're in a chaotic environment, there is consciously, or sometimes for people still unconsciously, we're using so much energy on the chaotic, or on the catching up, or on the being stressed, that we could so much better use for our real work or our purpose, if we would be caught up or a day ahead, like you said. What I'm wondering is, were you born this way, like knowing this, or did you have to learn this the hard way?
Well, I mean, for me, yeah, I wasn't born like being ahead,
No, that's not what I mean. But I mean, kind of like understanding this.
Yeah, no, it was a process for me. And for me, I noticed, I noticed even in school at a young age that I like to kind of get ahead and not be behind. Right. Even my wife, who's back in school now, getting an advanced degree, she likes to be like 2 weeks ahead on homework, but I noticed that, that I operated better when I was ahead at an early age. And then now, I'm not always there. Like I said, I drift back and forth, but I'm excited to kind of get the day's stuff done. And I do look, I call it, proactive procrastination, where I defer a lot of things. Like I'll wake up and say, okay, here are 10 things I can do, but you know what? These 7, they can be pushed out till tomorrow. Right. And now then tomorrow comes, and then maybe I push them out again and again and again. But when I do that, I realize that thing wasn't that important. Like it doesn't have a real sense of real urgency. And so sometimes I'll drop it. Or if it's something with an approaching deadline, well, then the priority will increase, on that. But I was surprised on how much I could just push into the next day. Now, then, so let's say I have 10 things and 3 I have to do, 7 I push to tomorrow. When I get the 3 done, now I kind of have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a mind release, and then I go to work on some of those 7. So now I'm kind of working on tomorrow's stuff. So sometimes it's almost, if you had 10 things to do, if you could say, well, I'm only going to do 2 or 3 today, you can almost fool your mind into being a day ahead, right? Because you push those things out till tomorrow. So it can be a little bit of a mind game, but it's interesting that you seem to have more energy, like when you're like, hey, I'm done and it's only noon. All right. And then you start working on tomorrow's stuff with kind of a higher, vigor than you had if you just said, here are these 10 things and I only got 7 done today and I missed 3 and I'm mad.
Now, but when we're talking about results, so what I noticed a lot of times with me, but also with fellow entrepreneurs or passionate, busy people, is figuring out which are the things that actually really move us forward, which are the things that we can actively and consciously procrastinate to tomorrow, and which ones should we actually do. Do you have some kind of a cool framework or idea around that, how we figure that out?
Yeah. So, it's interesting that when we talk to people, especially entrepreneurs, and we say, hey, do you know what the 80-20 rule is? And so have you heard of that rule, the 80-20, the Pareto Principle?
Yes. That's where I was going.
Yeah. So in this principle, it's, 20% of what you do produces 80% of the results, right? And then 80% of what you do only produces 20% of the results. And so what I do, the framework that I like best is for me, weekly work. So on Friday afternoon, I do this thing called the self plan, where I look back over the previous week, and I say, look, what went right? What went wrong? Like, where can I oust the 80, but where can I focus in on the 20? Like, what really made the difference on something I'm looking for, whether it's new clients or breakthroughs or getting on podcasts, like whatever kind of the goals for the week were, what were the things that really drove those? And it does turn out to be a small number of things. And so what you want to do is focus on those things for the next week. So on Friday afternoon, I build my schedule for the next week. But then you also want to, I find it's easier to focus in on what should you be ousting first. Like start with the decrease. What can you take out of your day? What could you do less of to make time for the better stuff? And so that's where I'll look back over the week and say, okay, these things didn't produce any results. Let's stop doing them, right? There's a quote about, do more of what works and less of what doesn't. But you need a cadence of examination, of things. So I like weekly for kind of the big look back. And most of the time, I'm not always finding like the one thing that makes something work, but I'm finding like 8 things that didn't work that I should drop, so I find it easier to do that. There's another inflection point that occurs whenever something really good happens in your life or in your business. Just pause for a moment and say, like, what made that happen? Like, so like, let's say you get a new client, or a big sale in your business, or you have a record day, something really good happens. Just pause for a moment. And in that moment, try to circle back and say, what were the things that really made this happen? Because it's in that moment, that's kind of a power moment where, right after that thing happens, if you can think about it, take some notes. A lot of times I use my iPhone. There's a notes app, and you can just like kind of do quick mind dumps in there. But I'll do, just a few minutes of a mind dump of what made that happen. Why did that person join your program, or what led to all those sales that day? So anyway, those are a couple of key things that people could use.
Yeah, I love that point, especially with the looking back, what made the good thing happen, because we usually think or kind of beat ourselves up for the things that don't happen. And when something good happens, we're kind of saying, oh, that was luck or coincidence or whatever, instead of actually really going and investigating and figuring out what actually did I do that made this happen. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper here, because you talked about this 80-20. And I mean, you can put that in a lot of different contexts in our life. But what on your blog, I actually saw that you go even some steps further, and you say that 1% of doing can get us to 51.2% of results. And I'm always thinking, like, I'm a geek, and I always try to find better ways. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, like, that sounds crazy, to just 1% and getting 51.2%. I have to write that down, because I thought, I don't remember 51.2%, but 51.2% of results. So that is, I don't know, the 80-20 on steroids or something.
Yeah. So there's this concept. So Pareto, this Italian economist, he kind of figured out that this ratio was occurring, that 20% of the people owned 80% of the wealth in Italy. And then he also noticed, from his pea pods that, 80% of the crops came from 20% of the seeds that he planted and plants producing the pods and things like that. So this ratio, it's not an exact ratio. So you might find some things where it's 90-10, or 70-30. But this ratio of kind of the vital few and the trivial many, that works. And so what happens is that you can use this Pareto principle, this 80-20 rule on itself. So for example, 20%, you can take, 20% produces 80% of the results, but then you can take 20% of the 20%. Right. So let's say we have 10 things that we're doing. 2 of those things produce 80% of the results, but then you could take 20%, of those 20% things, right? And that's where you start to see that there's really, there's things that are even more powerful, because you can do the 80-20 on the 20, right? So if you identify, these, say, let's say you identify these 5 things that are producing most of your results. Well, one of those 5, 20% of the 5, one of those is going to be far superior than the other 4. And so that's where, you start to look in and you go kind of deeper with the magnifying glass, on what's working and your results to kind of figure that out. And it's interesting that in a lot of businesses, when they get out the magnifying glass and look for that 20% and then find the 20 of the 20, they find that core thing that if they'll do that thing, focus most of their efforts on that thing, a lot of the other stuff takes care of itself. And we call those vital victories. Like, so when you identify that one thing, that you can kind of, if you achieve that one thing, most of the other smaller goals take care of themselves. Right. So that that's a key. And a lot of times it's a simple thing like talking to prospects. And so in the business, the more active conversations you have with people that have a true interest, so you've kind of built the trust bridge with them already, that's where, say, a lot of business comes from. So you just begin to maximize, those conversations and try to increase those, right? So the other thing is like the vital victory can also be, if you have one like overarching goal, can it take care of all the smaller ones? An example I use for that is like my daughter, she said, when she graduated college, she's like, hey, I want to hike the Grand Canyon. And I go, oh, that sounds like fun. She goes, in one day. From rim to rim. I'm like, how long is that? She's like 21 miles. So it's 7 down, 7 across, 7 up. Yeah. And I said, well, look, have a good time. And she said, no, you're coming with. So anyway, that year that we did that, like I didn't have to worry about any of my health goals, right? Because training I had to do, these massive, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-hour hikes to get ready for this, big hike. Right. So anyway, and then I had to figure out what kind of food I'm going to put in the backpack. And I learned so much, but that one vital victory, I didn't have to worry about my weight or how much exercise I was getting or anything, so if you can come up with that one vital victory, in your business or in your personal life, then you can just focus in on that. And the mind does pretty good. Like if you aren't trying to juggle, 10 balls, you're just trying to juggle one. Juggling one is pretty easy. 2 is a little more complicated. 3 is a little complicated. Most people are trying to do 15 and that's where they can't do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that reminds me, I don't know whether you heard or read the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. Yeah. So, and I think what you just explained with the 80-20 and then breaking down the 20 and the 20 and all that gets us actually to this one thing that then helps us move ahead in like you just said, in life or in business. And it takes us out of this overwhelm, which I really like, and which probably makes you the chief results officer because you figured this out. And like I said, you have so many cool concepts that I want to talk about. So another one is the 30-minute hour, which sounds a dream for a busy person. So now we have figured out the one thing. So how do we pack this now in a 30-minute hour?
Okay, so the 30-minute hour, it's how to get an hour's worth of stuff done in just 30 minutes, right? And so you're literally compressing time. And so this is a framework. In 2009, I started a company called Self-Fluence. And Self-Fluence is basically the art and science of influencing yourself, but also it's the power you already have to influence yourself. So you don't need anything new. You don't need a special app. You don't need any special software, anything like that. You already have the power. And so I teach frameworks, via Self-Fluence on these things that you already know how to do. So you already know how to have a 30-minute hour, which is cool. So you're gonna see, we could give you a lot of brain science, but you're not going to need it because you're going to intuitively know, yes, I've done this before. And now how do I do it? Again, every day, every single day. So I'm having a 30-minute hours every single day now, once I got this kind of framework and this concept down. Now, this is so powerful, though. I want to make sure that it's used for good and not for evil. And so, so let's say that let's say that we did 4 30-minute hours in a row. That means we got 4 hours of stuff done in just 2 hours. And that gives us 2 hours of guilt-free time to do whatever we want. You and I might be type A people, so we might say, well, we'll get more work done. No. Let's say you cannot work. So my question for you, Connie, is going to be, what would you do with 2 guilt-free hours? Now, me, I like the Peloton bike, which is right here in my home office. Mm-hmm. I would probably ride the Peloton. I like nature, might go out for a walk. I like connecting with old friends, so I might do that. And then I work from home, and I do like the good old-fashioned nap. So I would probably do a combination of those things with 2 guilt-free hours. What would you do with 2 guilt-free hours?
I have absolutely no problem to fill them. So I live on acreage. I would go out and hug my horses, or I would go and weed the garden because the weeds are relentlessly growing out there like crazy. Or I would sit at my pond and read a book, which to me is very relaxing. Like I always say, like if somebody would pay me for reading books, I would do that all day long.
There's probably a way to build a business around reading books or making synopsis or something like that for sure. Okay, so that's good. You've got some good stuff there. And so hopefully the listeners are thinking about what you would do with that guilt-free time, because I want you to take some of those things and put them back into your life once you learn this 30-minute hour, which you will never be the same once you hear this concept right now. And so there is a day of the year where people are 3 to 10 times more productive than a normal day. Now that's 3x to 10x. We're only looking for 2x. We just want to go from 60 minutes down to 30. So we're looking for 2x. But this is a day where everybody is 3 to 10 times more productive than their normal day. Do you know which day of the year that is?
No, I don't know. Probably today, because that's the only day we have. But for most people, it's tomorrow because they push everything to tomorrow.
Right. And people are waiting on someday, which never comes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, so some people have this day more than once a year. But most people have it at least once a year. All right, I'm gonna give it to you right here. This is it. This is very intuitive. So when you hear the 30-minute hour, I want you to think of the day before vacation. Now, on the day before vacation, the average person gets 3 to 10 times more stuff done than on their average day. So you already know how to do it, but let's unpack it. I wanted to create like a little framework and an acronym. And so the acronym is PDF. Now, most people know of the word PDF. They say, hey, email me the PDF or go print out the PDF. And that stands for portable document format, but that's not what it stands for this. But I want you to remember 30-minute hour, day before vacation, PDF. And PDF stands for plan, delegate, focus. And so let me unpack those 3 things and show you how you can have 30-minute hours. So the first one, P, stands for plan. And so the day before vacation, people typically make a written plan. So you could have some 30-minute hours if you'll just take a couple of minutes before you go to bed and map out the next day, especially the morning, so that when you wake up, there isn't a fogginess or anything to your day. You know exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to start the day. Now, the day before vacation, people typically wake up 30 to 60 minutes earlier than a normal day. So you want a 30-minute hour right out of the get-go, wake up 30 minutes earlier. Now you have 30 extra minutes. So that's one thing. But the next day planning typically will get you a 30-minute hour or 2, waking up early. You also have a very clear vision on that day before vacation. So getting clear about what needs to get done that day is really big. And then we already talked about this, but it's the 80-20 rule. You don't have time for the 80% on the day before vacation. You're leaving, you're getting out of here. You've got to focus in on what needs to get done, what's the highest priority. And so you're giving that priority to things as well. So that's kind of the planning stage. D stands for delegate. So the day before vacation, you're like a master delegator. So you're thinking who before the do. Like before you go do something, you're thinking who could go do this thing. For me, my wife, who also works from home, she'll say, hey, I'm running some errands. Can I run some do anything for you? I'm like, boom, 30-minute hour, because now she can do the bank or the post office or whatever. And now since I delegated those things to her, I'm immediately getting that time back. So delegation is really big, and deferring. Like you're figuring out who can do this thing. And if you realize the value of your time, you're going to delegate even more, right? So you can delegate things you don't like to do around the house. You can delegate meal prep. I mean, there's lots of things that you can delegate, but try to think who before the do, because you can create a lot more time in your day if you can figure out who you can offload stuff to. But the most powerful, so there's plan, delegate, and focus. And focus is the most powerful of the three, because if you think about what you don't do on the day before vacation, right? And the day before vacation, there's no idle chit chat. There's no long Netflix movies. There's no chasing shiny objects. There's no long getting stuck on the internet. There's no long conversations with people on the phone. So realizing that you have this fierce focus and bring that back into your regular day. So for example, for me, I have a little card here that reminds me day before vacation mode. Like I'm trying to stay in that mode so much. So I'm talking to people about it and they're like, oh, where are you going on vacation? I go, no, I don't have a vacation till August, but I'm in the day before vacation mode. So I'm getting a lot of stuff done, and I'm also trying to use the day before vacation mode when someone asks me for my time. Like someone will say, hey, Blaine, could we get together for an hour and brainstorm this new project? I'll say, sure, but can we do it in 30 minutes? See right there, shoo, I got it right down, or someone will say, do you have 30 minutes? I'll say, can we do it in 15? Now, maybe it takes more than 15, but we're still very conscious of the time. The other thing that you are a master at on the day before vacation is that most powerful word, and the word that helps you get a day ahead, which is N-O, no. So when they ask me stuff the day before vacation, Blaine, can you do this? No. I'm like Dr. No. I'm just knowing everything. And so if you can do that, if you can bring that into your regular day and stay and say no more, you're going to find more time. And a lot of times the no might not bring you a 30-minute hour, but it's going to prevent a 90-minute hour, right? So I have these people, someone asks for an hour of your time and then it takes 90 minutes, right? So it helps you on that end. The other thing is the day before vacation, people are so focused, they tend to stay on schedule more, and they tend to use timers. So I will use timers. So if I've got something that I only want to work 30 minutes on, I'll tell Siri, to wake up and set a timer for whatever the time is, right? So I'm using timers throughout the day. That can easily make it happen for you. And then you tend to stay on schedule better. And then the last part of the fierce focus is that you become a master at tasking. And so there's three kinds of tasking. There's single tasking, multitasking, and batch tasking. So single tasking, which is where a lot of your most important work gets done, is things that only you can do. And when you single task, you want to have complete, focus, no rings, dings, bings, or distractions. For example, I write articles for mastermind groups, and I can get an hour's worth of article writing done if I will, in 30 minutes, if I will remove all distractions, airplane mode, door closed, all the windows are shut down except the one that I'm typing in. And I have this total focus. And when I get the monkey mind, I have a scrap paper. I just write down that monkey mind thought, and then I'm right back on it. Right. So if I have that single-mindedness, distraction-free focus, that is probably one of the ways that I get one of my the most 30-minute hours is from that distraction-free environment. And when you practice that, you'll be able to slip into that deep focus a lot faster. So that's probably one of the biggest tips is that when you go single tasking, go single tasking, and really shut out the world. Now, multitasking does get a bad rap, but multitasking is when you're doing two things at the same time without compromising the quality of either one. So there's not a lot of these, but there's some great ones. Day before vacation, you're driving someplace for 30 minutes. Normally I might throw on some 80s rock music or something, but not on the day before vacation. I'm like 30 minutes. I can make 2 calls during that time, right? So I'm driving. I got hands-free phones, very safe. I can have quality driving and quality talking, on the phone at the same time. That's the multitasking. Or if I'm exercising, I'm listening to podcasts like this, right? So there are times where I can do 2 things at once without compromising the quality. That's the multitasking. And the last one is batch tasking. And that's where you batch things together that naturally go together. And so, for example, if you're going to run errands, if you've got an hour's, if you go out and then come back and go out and come back 3 times versus just going out and doing the 3 errands, right? You batch that stuff together. Typically, you'll cut the time in half and you'll have a 30-minute hour. we also batch things based on what you're doing. For example, if you batch all your computer work into a certain number of hours, typically it takes less time. If you batch your phone calls into a certain time, it takes less time. If you batch your interactions with people, you'll have the 30-minute hours. What I mean by that is, like, let's say that, you're working with a team and they're kind of interrupting you all the time. Instead, if you say, look, from 9 to 11, I'm going to be in single task mode. At 11, let's meet for 30 minutes and we'll go over any questions that you have for the day. And then maybe we'll meet again at 3 or 3:30, and batching the interactions with people will give you those 30-minute hours. My wife and I, since she also works from home, we could be like interrupting each other all day long. We used to text each other too much throughout the day, but now we have a shared note. So it's a shared note inside our iPhone, and we just put the stuff in there. And then typically we have lunch together, and when we're in the context of each other, then we go over that list. So we didn't kind of interrupt each other all day long. And then when we look at the list, if it's short, that's great. But if it's long, then we're going faster. So by batching things, you tend to work, more efficiency. So again, planning, delegating, fierce focus. And the thing that happens on the day before vacation, an overarching thing that happens is you actually release your inner perfectionist. Mm-hmm. So you release your inner perfectionist, and done is better than perfect. And it's like, look, it's a day before vacation. I got to go. I got to get this stuff done. Chop, chop, let's go. And so you're about getting the stuff done, and not about perfection. And if you can bring some of that back into your average day, you're going to have more 30-minute hours. So I don't know, there it is in a nutshell, the 30-minute hour day before vacation mode PDF. There it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I haven't had crazy days like this in a long time, but I do remember back when I was still working in corporate, these days before vacation were hell. Yes, on the good side, all the good stuff that you just said with being focused and you're letting perfectionism go, which is hard for me sometimes, But how do you prevent that you get into this frenzy? Because like one of the things you say is like stress less and do more. But all my memories of the day before vacation days was like, yes, I was focused, and yes, I got all this stuff done, but it was like very stressful because it was kind of like go, 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 go. So do you have some tips around that, just to people not falling into this frenzy of every day is a last day before vacation day and they're getting a heart attack or something?
Right. So we want to bring back the productivity side of the day before vacation, but not as much the stress side, right? Mm-hmm. And so you kind of, you get to decide how much of it, how far you want to turn the dial to get yourself to do stuff. And then when do you kind of turn the dial back? And like I said, when you create these 30-minute hours, they also create a lot more extra time. So you have time for the mental breaks, or like I take a mind shower in the morning, and I like to kind of wash my brain like I wash my body, mm-hmm. and then I'll take breaks. Like right before this call, I was hanging upside down on my little teeter-totter thing where I hang from my ankles like Batman. So I'm working in, those things to maintain kind of a calmness, to it. And it's also, it's helpful for you to kind of gauge how far you want to take it. Right. And so you can get worked into a frenzy, pretty easily. So again, maybe you do the day before vacation, on Wednesdays, or something like that. Like you pick a day and time, but you get to control how much you want to kind of turn that up and then how much you don't. But there isn't, the pressure of the day isn't that it's there to help you, but at the same time, you're not leaving the next day. So you have time to push things or defer things to the next, like we were talking about the day ahead mode. It's kind of a balance, right? Yes. What I have found is it's almost like Zig Ziglar talks about, pumping a well, and in the beginning, you got to do a lot of hard work and you're really pumping and pumping and pumping. But then once the water starts to flow, it's nice and easy. Mm-hmm. So I think in the beginning, this day before vacation mode for me was kind of stressful, and I was like jamming in all kinds of stuff and doing that. But after a number of those days in a row and saying no, mm-hmm. to new stuff, then for me, then it became something that, was much easier, calmer. And then you get ahead, and then you get a day ahead. And now you're waking up and it's like, wow, I could just go for a walk right now.
Or on vacation.
Yeah, or go on vacation, right?
Yeah, I love that with the water pump, because I experienced that once. And in the beginning, it's really like pumping and pumping and pumping, and then afterwards, you can actually even take a break and not pump for a bit, and then pump one or twice again, and then it flows. And that's what you're basically saying. So I'm glad I asked that, because I could just see people thinking like, oh no, Blaine, I don't want to be in this frenzy like I'm usually at the day before vacation.
Right. And again, that day before vacation, you are 3 to 10 times more productive than average day. And we're just looking for 2.
We're just going for 2.
Just bring a little bit of that in, not the whole thing.
A-type overachiever, be careful. I'm pretty sure some of the audience is like me, like, okay, 2 times. Well, but if we can do 3 times, let's do 3 times.
Right.
So I could talk with you forever. We have to be a little bit mindful of the time, but I have one more thing that I really need to ask you. Because you're talking about creating a habit in 21 seconds. And I want to say something beforehand. So we all heard that a habit takes 21 days to establish. But then actually science debunked that and said, no, it's actually more like 67 days or even longer. And you're coming now and saying, like, forget about the 21 days. Let's just do it in 21 seconds. So now, of course, I want to know, how can I do that in 21 seconds?
Yes. And so first, I'm going to concur with the science that it is over 60 days to now they can measure your brain to such a degree that they can see the neural pathways and that to make the habit completely automatic, no willpower required, and something that you don't have to think about. It looks like it, like you said, 60 to 70 days. Mm-hmm. But what we're going to share is a little bit of a brain hack that allows you to create that new habit in 21 seconds. And again, just like self-fluence, like you already know how to do it. You can do it. I talk to people and I say, I ask people, are you good at creating new habits? No, I'm terrible at habits. My New Year's resolution is gone by the second week of January. And people think that they're not habit masters, but actually we are all habit masters.
Yeah, we're creatures of habit.
Yeah. And I tell the story. The first part of the 21-second habit is I tell a story about my wife, and she no longer has this, but she used to have nearly daily migraine headaches. Mm-hmm. And so the doctors gave her this log, and they said, look, you got to fill out this headache log every day. Like, what's the weather? What could be the triggers? What food did you eat? What was the barometric pressure? All kinds of stuff. And she'd fill it out for a couple of days, then she'd lose it, or forget to fill it out. And it was like really frustrating for her. And then one day I noticed that, she was brushing her teeth. And I'm like, Beth, you're really good at brushing your teeth every day in the morning and at night, 2 minutes, just like the dentist said. And so the first key to the 21-second habit is something that I call habit linking. And so this is really, really powerful, is that, so what we did is we took the headache log and we put the toothbrush on top of it. And so whenever she brushed her teeth, she would fill out the headache log. Well, she didn't go 2-3 days in a row. She went 90 days in a row filling that out and looking at it twice a day. She didn't have to think about brushing her teeth. That happened automatically. That was already an existing habit. So linking to that habit, she created the new habit basically instantly, 21 seconds. And then she kept that habit up. And anyway, that led to a lot of different things. And today she has a migraine headache maybe once every couple months. So it's really, that's nice. So that's the first key. The second key, though, is I kind of discovered this when, after that happened for my wife, I said, look, let me try a new habit. I want to create a new habit, 2 new habits that I do every day, first thing in the morning. Let's see if this works. And one was I want to do this Bible app. But the second one was I wanted to take that mind shower. I wanted to spend basically like a 10-minute mind shower, but I wanted to kind of take the head trash out of my head every day, because social media, news, and people, there was a lot of negativity happening. So I said, I want to do this mind shower. And so what I did is I thought, okay, what could I habit link to? What is the first thing I do every single day? Well, the first thing I do every single day is I pick up my smartphone. Now, sometimes the alarm's going off on my smartphone, but it's the first thing I look at. So I opened up my smartphone. I moved all the apps off the first page except for those two. And so what I did is I habit linked the opening of my phone for the first time every day. I'd see those two apps and I would do those apps. So habit linking, that's key number one. But key number two is surfing an urge that you have to do something to get you to do the new habit. So in other words, why did I open my phone first thing in the morning every morning? Well, I wanted to see, did my kids text me? My son lives in Denmark, and my daughter is in residency. Did they text me? What emails did I have? What's happening in the world? What's going on with my investments? What orders came in? Like I had all these things I wanted to know about the day. And so surfing that urge, saying, you know what, I'm not allowed to look at that stuff until I do this stuff. Now, if I'm short on time, I'll do a 3-minute mind shower instead of a 10-minute, and I've always had 3 minutes, but using those two things, the habit linking and surfing the urge, today was like day 447 in a row that I've done that habit. So it really created some consistency. And so the third thing is there's one other thing that you can do. So there's the habit linking, surfing the urge. And the last part is you can get some leverage on yourself to stick with the habit. And what I mean by that is we're driven by pleasure and by pain. And so on the pleasure side, we're driven by reward. So if you say, look, if I do this habit for a week, every day for a week, I'm going to give myself a little reward, right? Or if I do it for a month, maybe a bigger reward, right? If I do it for a year, really bigger, reward. So lining up some kind of reward is good. And then also pain is a motivator. And so you can have leverage on yourself by putting in a penalty, right? So if I fall off this thing, then I have to, wash out the garbage cans or, something you don't like to do, and maybe get an accountability buddy, and we're human and we might fall off, but having a little penalty, gives some leverage, and then tracking it. So there's pain, there's pleasure. And then there's this idea of don't break the chain. Like once we get like 3 or 4 days in a row, we really want to try to keep the streak going, right? So again, tracking it in some way. I like apps like I use an app called Headspace for my mind shower, but it tracks. It says how many days in a row that I've done it. So I kind of, not only do I have a little proof, but also I really don't want to, not do it, right? Because I have, over 1,000 days in a row, So anyway, that's it. So it's habit linking, and there's lots of things you do every day, multiple times a day. There's some things you do only once a day, like get up or touch your phone. A lot of people link to like the first cup of coffee in the morning. It's like, what do you do every morning? I have a cup of coffee. No willpower required. No. So you can link to that because that's powerful. Yeah. These habits you already have. That's how you kind of hack the 60 days. Yeah. Now, once you do it for 60, 70 days, the new habit, does take root and becomes kind of part of your life, but it's super powerful to create the habits. And you can do habits once a week. There's things that you do. There's things that only happen once a month, but you can link to these things that are already happening.
Yeah, I knew it as habit stacking, yes. But it's the same thing. Yeah. But
with the surfing of the urge and the leverage, it becomes more powerful than just the stacking.
Yeah. You mentioned somewhere on your website that you do something for already for 1,298 days. I'm not sure whether you meant that Headspace app or not, but I wanted to say I do something for 1,136 days. So I can totally confirm that this works. And that's how we are all able to actually change our habits or implement a better habit or let go of a bad habit. So, Blaine, this is really awesome. Like, I could probably talk with you all day, but you and we have other things to do. So did I not ask something that you really want to get across, or what you think like is missing in the conversation we had so far?
The only thing I would say is for the listeners to realize, I talked a little bit about with self-influence, but to realize the power that you have in your own mind. That is it is so powerful. I have a little saying, what you think about, you bring about. But your mind is powerful, both the conscious and the subconscious. And you can kind of program the subconscious to work for you, not against you. A lot of people, it's working against you. But just to realize that power of the mind and take some action steps to create some good habits, to pour in the positive, and to begin to take control of your greatest asset, which is that 3-pound tool, the gray matter of the mind. I think that's probably, an important message. And maybe someday we come back and kind of unpack head trash and how to stay positive and how to pour in the positive and move yourself in the right direction. But that would be the only other thing I think is important to know when you're looking to influence yourself.
Yeah, like I said, I had this long list. It was like, there's no way we get this all in one episode. So share real quick with my audience where they can find you. Do you have a favorite social media platform besides your website?
Yeah,
brag a little bit.
yeah, the easiest thing would be go to BlaineTEDx.com. So BlaineTEDx.com, BlaineTEDx.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there you can opt in. I did a TEDx talk. And in that talk, I talk about another kind of a mind hack where you can remind yourself of whatever your main goal is in life, 60 to 100 times a day, kind of on automatic pilot. So that's fun, but you'll get to know me through that, and then we'll be connected. So you'll get my email. You can, if I can serve you in any way, I'd be happy to do it. But I think that TEDx talk is a great place to start.
Yeah, so I will put the link in the show notes for sure too, so people could just click on that and don't have to go and search for it. So, Blaine, this was really a pleasure. And like I said, I could talk with you forever and ever, but we wrap it up here, and maybe we get you back and you talk about head trash and all these other awesome concepts you have. Thanks so much for your time, Blaine.
I appreciate it. Thank you for, again, like I said at the beginning, thank you for putting this together, doing all the work, putting it out there. You're serving many people. That's what leads to greatness. I do appreciate you. And I'll leave you with this. The bad news is time flies. The good news, you're the pilot. So pilot your day, pilot your life, and have a great one.
Oh, I love that saying. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thanks, Blaine. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.